Wherever you are on the big blue marble we call Earth, we thank you. We're available on Spotify and on YouTube. And on episode number 2 of Off the Record, entrepreneur, defense attorney, and former mayor of Fall River, Will Flanagan, right now. And welcome to edition number 2 of Off the Record, as we talk to entrepreneur, defense attorney, and a former mayor for the city of Fall River, and perhaps an opponent for the current congressman of the Massachusetts 4th District. Will Flanagan joins us, and we thank you, sir. We know you are busy with various things. I know we talked about this on WSAR. TikTok has a reprieve. Congressman Auchincloss apparently has indicated, I believe it was on Fox News, that the edict that President Trump signed, the executive order, may in fact be illegal. What say you?
Well, first, let's talk a little bit about TikTok so the people at home can understand what the app is all about. TikTok is a social media app. It's owned by a company that is in China, and that is a lot of the controversy right now, is that it is not owned by an American company. And because of that, the critics of TikTok believe that the data of the U.S. citizens could be jeopardized or breached by the Chinese government. But withstanding that for a moment, TikTok is an app for news, social media, entertainment, commerce. It's really the First Amendment. It's speech. And millions of people go on TikTok. It's a maybe billion-dollar business, and it's probably one of the fastest growing apps on the App Store, outpacing Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, formerly known as X. Not too many people in this area probably use it. More so, I think this area is more Facebook driven. But when you go across America, especially with the youth, TikTok is very popular, and I personally know people who have made a very successful career being TikTok personalities or TikTok influencers or users. Bringing it back now, Alan, to the controversy that's occurring in government. President Trump came into office. He held off the ban of TikTok. For those who have been following this know that TikTok went off air for several hours. The app closed by their own fruition. But Trump, TikTok, Congress, they're all trying to work together to see how they can keep this app alive. And essentially what may happen is a portion, maybe 50%, 51%, may be acquired by a U.S. corporation, and that probably would keep TikTok alive and open for people to use.
Now, Senator Markey said basically the Senate needed more time to debate this. President Trump has suggested, as he was basically signing the executive order, that if a deal gets cut, he wants the federal government to be a 50% partner. He thinks it could generate billions of dollars as a result.
It's a $1 billion app, and there are people who are doing very well engaging in this app and using it. And for those who may not have used it, I encourage you to look into it, possibly sign up for it, use it for a day. The technology that's involved in this app is mind-blowing. It's better than any television, any radio, reading a book. It's definitely worth the money that they're saying this could be sold for. And why I say that is, when you open the TikTok app, it knows you better than you know yourself. So the algorithm focuses content and provides you content that you are interested in. If you like sports, you're going to get sports content. If you like cooking, you'll get cooking content. If you like hunting, you'll get hunting content. For me, a lot of it's politics and sports and entertainment. That's what shows up on my TikTok. So it keeps me engaged, or it keeps me up to date on what's going on. And for the argument that this could be breached by the Chinese government, there are other companies or other corporations that are owned by China. You know, if the Chinese government wants our data, TikTok is not the way they're going to get it.
we asked you on because you're a consumer of TikTok.
Yes.
And could you tell us some of, why you enjoy it? And I mean, you're pretty prolific on TikTok.
Yes. Well, during the pandemic, there wasn't much to do, right? The whole world shut down during COVID. There wasn't really any new TV shows being made. There wasn't any new books being published, any really good movies coming out. So we had to find a way to keep ourselves busy. And we all did a number of things to do that. For me, I signed up to TikTok. And I had Facebook, I had Twitter. It was okay. But once I got on TikTok, it was mind-blowing to see how the app would provide me with material and content that I was interested in. And I started talking to people all across the world, almost becoming pen pals with people from Ireland and Portugal, all throughout Europe and Asia and Africa and Australia, getting to know people, getting to meet personalities, my favorite celebrities or athletes. I've also had an opportunity, and still do today, to make money off of TikTok because people watch my material or watch the post I make. Every month, TikTok will send me money. So I'm not on it enough where I can make it a full-time job, but many people are. A friend of mine just signed a contract for $400,000 that he's getting paid for providing content on TikTok and other streams. So,
may I ask what kind of content? Just kind of curious. You said it's across the board.
Yeah, for him, he is a streamer that goes out into the community. He travels, so it's travel content. He'll take you through New York. Next month he'll be in Tokyo. He was in Ireland. He was in Mexico. So you're going on travel with him, and he takes you into all the various cities that he travels in. People find that fascinating. So it's an opportunity. Look, when I look at it, it's the First Amendment. There's a First Amendment issue there. Can government regulate speech? That's the First Amendment is probably one of the most protected amendments we have as citizens of this country. It's a commerce issue. People use this for business, and they make money, and they sell goods on it. If you want to buy things off the TikTok shop, you can, almost like shopping on Amazon. So it's a First Amendment issue. It's a commerce issue. And it's also really a privacy issue. People sign up for this, and because we signed up for it, can the government just take it away from us?
The content that you come up with, do you just come up with on the fly, or do you plan this well ahead, or a little of both?
For me, it's a little bit of both. Some users, some content creators get really creative, and it's almost like a Hollywood studio that goes into the production value. So for some creators, it's very intense, very intricate on the content that they produce. For somebody like me, it's my iPhone, and I'm doing singing, dancing, funny stuff, telling jokes, or commenting or giving editorials on things that are happening in the world today. So it can range. I have not taken it to that level where it's getting very in-depth and detailed, but there are creators who do that, yes.
If maybe we could sort of take a little step ahead. You have just started a acting career.
I have.
Can you tell us about that?
As kids, we all have dreams, right? And I've been blessed where I've had the opportunity to live out some of the dreams that I had as a kid. And one of the dreams was to be an actor. I love movies. I love the whole dream or concept of Hollywood, especially old-time Hollywood. It's just something that always fascinated me. And I was able to become friends with a director and producer called, his name is Tom DiNucci. He's a Rhode Island native. He's affiliated with Verde Productions. Verde's affiliated with Martin Scorsese. They've done a number of movies like The Irishman. And because movies are being shot in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, right here in our home, in our backyard, I've had the opportunity to be a part of it. One of the movies I was able to act in was called Till Death. It's a Lifetime movie. It was filmed in Rhode Island.
When was it? When did you?
This summer we filmed it.
This summer, it was over the summer?
Yeah, it was a Lifetime movie. It involved, the plot was a doctor who was well respected in the hospital and medical community, but at night he was a serial killer. So that's the movie. I played a police officer in it, a small role, but enjoyed it. And then the second movie I was in was called The Roaring Game. And it will come out on Peacock in 2026 for the Winter Olympics. It starred Mickey Rourke, Rob Gronkowski.
Wow.
And it was a comedy based on curling. So I won't give too much of the plot away, but it will be on Peacock next year, and I had a featured part in that.
Where was that filmed?
Also in Rhode Island.
In Rhode Island,
Yes.
yeah. Do you have any other? I saw today online that there's some casting calls in Rhode Island. You got anything coming up?
We
or
do.
anything
We
you're
have
interested?
a few more movies lined up for this year. Mostly, I've been working with Tommy because him and I work well together. But there may be some opportunities working outside of Verde and DiNucci. But when you start networking and meeting people, just like TikTok is an industry, so is the movie business. So I meet with people now who have scripts and they want to have their movies made. And there are tax credits in Rhode Island and Massachusetts to get movies made. And when you have this opportunity, maybe you invest $200,000-$300,000 in a script and have a movie made, and who knows, that movie can take off and do really well. Maybe you'll lose money on it. But the movie business is a business, it is an industry. So I've had opportunity to be on one side of the camera and also some opportunity to be on the other side as an investor in scripts.
So you're going to take your TikTok thing and eventually possibly produce a movie?
It's interesting you say that, Dave, because there have been discussions regarding doing movies off of some of the personalities on TikTok. One of the individuals who I've become friends with, his name is World of T-Shirts, Joshua Block. He has 4 million people following him on TikTok. He is a 22-year-old young man living in New York. He's autistic. And his life is fascinating, where people have approached me and said, gee, that could be an interesting movie. This young man who is autistic, who really was trapped in his own little world in school, maybe as an outsider looked at by some of his classmates, gets on TikTok and becomes a celebrity overnight, and how he has to handle that. And Joshua is the person who I was talking about, who just signed the contract for $400,000, changed his life. But before that, he was a celebrity without really any money. So you would go out with Josh, or he would be out and people would come up to him, ask him for his autograph, and he really didn't even have $5 in his pocket, but he was known worldwide for the people who knew him in that community. TikTok changed his life. He's now in a different income bracket. And there are discussions of having movies made about some of the personalities that you see on TikTok, biography movies that you would see just in the movie industry.
So how are you going to have time for politics if you're going to be acting and directing and being a Hollywood Mongol?
You got to find enough hours in the day.
Mogul.
Yeah. You got to find enough hours in the day.
Oh, mongrel, whatever.
And you got to prioritize too. You got to prioritize.
So he brought up politics.
Yes.
Not too long after the election, you announced that you were now a Republican.
Yes.
And maybe you could tell us, is there a reason? I think that Alan hinted at something for the intro, but is there something that you're looking at as a Republican candidate?
Many reasons. I was a lifelong Democrat. When I was 18, I registered to vote. I voted Democrat my entire life up until recently. And I felt the Democratic Party left me. There were issues occurring that the Democrats were supporting that I just did not identify with or felt I was a part of. Immigration was a major one, and how they were treating the border crisis. The cost of living skyrocketing in Massachusetts, people struggling to pay bills. There's also national issues like focusing on the Second Amendment and issues such as that. But just taking it back to issues that really affect us on a day-to-day basis, I felt that the Democratic Party that I was a strong advocate in, I just didn't identify with anymore. And I voted Trump in the last election.
Were you surprised that Trump took Fall River?
I wasn't, because just like me, I'm a product of Fall River, and people who live in the city, we tend to think alike sometimes. And Fall River is a hardworking community, blue-collar community, and a lot of the hardworking blue-collar people just felt that the Democratic Party was focused on issues other than improving their life at home. And as they were struggling at the gas pump, struggling at the grocery store, I think they looked for a chance to say, gee, Biden-Harris wasn't the ticket for us, or Harris-Walsh wasn't the ticket for us. We're going to give Trump another chance to see if he can make things right.
Did you read Project 2025?
I have. I know there's a lot of discussion and debate regarding it. It's not something I subscribe to, and it's really early in the administration, and we'll have to, history will tell us whether or not that it was fulfilled or not.
You want to run for mayor?
That's a great question. I enjoyed my time as mayor. I wouldn't rule out another run for mayor. I enjoy public service, so I would not rule out seeing my name on the ballot for office in the future.
Do you think people kind of think you got a raw deal in 2014 and 2015 and maybe want to make it up to you some way?
I don't know if they want to make it up to me, Alan. Talk about Fall River. We hold people accountable. So if they were to vote for me for office, it wouldn't be as a consolation prize or making it up to me. It would be that they felt I was the best person for the job. Do I felt I got a raw deal back in 2014? It's already been 10 years since that happened, although sometimes
Over
it seems
10
like it was
years,
yesterday.
Unbelievable, huh?
I would have to say, a lot of the things, some of the mistakes I made, if I were not to make them again today, it would change probably the outcome of the election. So I take some of the blame there.
Was pay-as-you-throw a mistake?
Pay-as-you-throw was interesting because it was a program that received huge recognition. It was a program that got a lot of awards. It was great for the environment. It reduced the amount of trash going to the landfill. It made people more conscious and conscientious of what they were throwing out and how to throw things out properly. So that part of it worked very well. The program worked phenomenally. The city was actually cleaner under pay-as-you-throw than it is now. However, the program was not implemented properly. And some may say it shouldn't have been implemented at all here in Fall River. So
Why is that? That is something, because I was a reporter at the Herald News at the time, and that was all we talked about, reported for. It was ad nauseum, honestly. And I'm not from Fall River, but I've been covering it for 13 years. I never understood what. I mean, I've come from communities with pay-as-you-throw. We still have it in Tiverton. Nobody complains about it. What was it that made Fall River angry about the whole situation?
I get it, and I understand it, and I know what made the people angry. Pay-as-you-throw in the majority cities and towns is implemented. Go to any city and town throughout Massachusetts or Rhode Island or anywhere in America, there's some type of pay-as-you-throw program. So it's not this odd concept, this bizarre concept, this alien concept. However, Fall River is a city that struggles financially. At the end of the month, people really have to decide what they're how they're going to get their medicine, how they're going to get food, how they're going to get gas, and many people at the end of the month go without because they just don't have the money to make ends meet. People are struggling more today than they did 10 years ago. Cost of living has gone up. So financially, it was an issue in the city. They just didn't have the money for it. And then the city is also a proud city. They can be somewhat confrontational. And they had just gotten over the stormwater fee, if you remember. Go back to 2009. That was a very unpopular fee. And folks said, look, we got a stormwater fee we don't really want to pay. We feel that's unfair and unjust. Now we're going to get a pay-as-you-throw fee. Hold on, we're not going to allow it to happen. If I think going back to that election of 2014, if it was just pay-as-you-throw, I probably would have survived it and got reelected. But there was just so much going on at that time with issues that we've talked about. It was a weird time in the city. But to say, does the city want to make it up to me? No, but I think they recognize that my intentions were always good and I'm a hard worker.
Well,
Do you
Will,
think-
I'm sorry.
Do you think you'd have a shot at mayor if you did run?
I don't want to be overly confident, but I think I would be one of the best candidates, if not the best candidate for mayor.
Get the experience, so.
Yes.
Anything on the national
A
level?
lot of the national issues pique my interest, and I'm always watching the news, focusing on the news. Like people read a book, I watch the news. It's what, I do to pass time. I like to stay up to date on what's happening in the world, and locally and nationally. So I'm always checking the news, reading the newspapers, watching the news on TV. It consumes me a lot. And a lot of the issues where I feel I can be effective are issues that are happening nationally or even globally. Dave talks about I have the experience. I do. When you look at my resume, it's a very diverse resume. Former city solicitor, former mayor, former DA, entrepreneur, business owner. I've been very successful in the operations or the ventures that I get in. I don't ask people to judge me by my winners. I ask them to judge me by my losers because I have so few of them. So I have a diverse resume. I feel I can be effective in any role that I'm placed in, and I'm going to find a way to solve a problem because I'm able to sometimes think outside the box. And if I can stay on this for one moment, if you look at the things that I was involved in as mayor, a lot of them came to fruition. We were talking about gaming before gaming was even legalized. Waterfront developments, South Coast Rio, we were fighting for all of those projects. Solid waste issues, our environmental issues. Maybe we were too much on the forefront of issues, and maybe we pushed too hard sometimes. But a lot of the things we talked about or worked on, a lot of them came to fruition at some point. We talked about building a resort-style casino in the area of the Harbor Mall. People laughed at me and thought I was crazy. And one opened up a mile and a half down the road in Tiverton. So we weren't that far off, right?
It did.
Yeah.
I was also curious if you would be looking at any positions on a national level, Congress, Senate.
Since I changed parties and enrolled as a Republican, my phone has not stopped ringing with people to meet. And I've met some very influential people within the last 30 days, people who are affiliated with the president's administration, people who are very successful in business, who live here in Massachusetts. And there are many opportunities out there for me, and I'm excited about the amount of opportunities. But as Dave pointed out, there's only so much time in the day, and you can't take your eye off of some of the things that really matter, like family. You got to always focus on your family. I own 3 businesses. Every time I'm focused on something else, am I focusing on my businesses? You also got to focus on your health and make sure you're healthy, because if you wear yourself out or run yourself down, you're not going to have the energy or the mental capacity to do the things you need to do. So it's been a really exciting time for me, especially these last 30 days. I wish I could, pull the curtain back and tell you some of the people who I've met with or things we talked about, but there's a lot of opportunity out there.
You were one of the 14 individuals who submitted a request to former Mayor Correa regarding a letter of non-opposition for your marijuana business. What was that like?
It was interesting. If you go back to the time in Fall River when the mayor at the time, Mayor Correa, was under investigation by the FBI.
Because you were mentioned in the second
Indictment.
Right, second indictment.
Correct.
Way in the back, but
And if you go back to that time, Alan, the FBI was looking at anybody and everybody who even thought about opening up a business here in Massachusetts or Fall River, who associated with Mayor Correa or got a letter of non-opposition from him. I was able to receive a letter of non-opposition from him, also received a letter of non-opposition from Mayor Paul Coogan after he was elected. But because I did everything the right way and didn't try to skirt the law, it was never an issue for me. I never had to be brought to testify at a trial, never had to go in front of any grand jury, because I knew, and law enforcement knew, that we did things the right way, and we didn't try to break the law in order to get some type of financial gain.
Do you think being a lawyer kind of saved you?
You know, no, I think being raised right saved me. You know, my mom and dad raising me right, and also not wanting to embarrass my family or my family name. I never wanted to wake up the next day and have my name in print associated with something bad, not because of any, what's the word I'm looking for? Any shame it would bring me, but shame it would bring my family. I would never want to shame my mother or my father who passed away, or my children or anything like that. So I'm more conscientious of being a good person and not shaming my name or my family and being raised right. But being an attorney also helps too, because you know the law. And I represented people who, and prosecuted people who allegedly broke the law. So it helps, but I think your moral compass helps you even more.
Sure. How is the marijuana business in Fall River these days?
It's going well for us because we kind of cracked the code on how to have a successful business, but it is getting saturated. I think back to discussions that took place on the city council level, councils like Leo Pelletier, right?
7 should be the top. You know.
8.
It was 8. He had 8. Okay.
So there was a lot of knowledge in Councilor Pelletier's statement. Leo was right. You know, it can and will become saturated. So I meet with people who currently own cannabis shops who are looking to sell me their shop because they can't make any money with it right now. So I would advise people to maybe, if they were thinking about getting in the cannabis industry, make sure they take a solid look at it, because it's not the panacea that everybody thinks it is, and you can really lose your shirt if you take a wrong move.
There was a period where Fall River, pretty much before Rhode Island legalized, you had a whole audience coming over the border that isn't there anymore. So you've really got to kind of shake the trees to get people to come to your location.
You do. It comes down to great customer service, great pricing, great location, and we have that at Cosmopolitan in Fall River. So people come from out of state, they come from the area, and they know when they come to our dispensary on Hartwell Street, they're going to get a good product at a good price with good customer service.
Herald News reported today on their website that the test trains are over and that South Coast Rail is scheduled to roll at some point in the first or second quarter of this year. How's that going to change Fall River long term, you think?
I'm excited about South Coast Rail, but I also have my concerns about South Coast Rail. It's a project I advocated for when I was mayor. A lot of the work to get South Coast Rail up and running happened under the 5 years that I was there, working with Governor Deval Patrick and also Ken Fiola in the Office of Economic Development. So we were able to get that project to where Charlie Baker's administration and mayors preceding me were able to get it up and running. Also with Gene Fox has done a great job with the project. So South Coast Rail, hopefully at an affordable price, you'll be able to get on the train, go to Main Station in Boston, and be there in about 90 minutes. Better than sitting in traffic and having to drive up there on a snowy or rainy day. With that said, we see some type of reverse boom happening in Fall River because people who can no longer afford to live in Brockton and Boston are moving to Fall River, driving up the rents and pushing out the people who currently live here. A house that may have went for $400,000, $500,000 is now going for $700,000, $800,000. I am very concerned about the people like my mom and people her age in their 60s, 70s, and 80s who are not going to be able to afford to live in Fall River. And that point is either here or it's going to be here, where those living in the city who are living on a fixed income or even struggling to make ends meet are going to wake up one day and say, I can't afford to pay my rent, I can't afford to pay my bills, and it's going to be a hard time for a lot of people in Fall River.
It's a national problem. I mean,
It is.
And you know, sometimes when you're in it, you think, oh, it's just Fall River. It's across the board. The governor is, she seems to be trying to work on the housing issue. Do you have any thoughts yourself? I mean, I haven't heard anyone talking about implementing that if you want to build new in Fall River or refurbish old mills, say, that you would have, say, 10% of, not market rate, and not affordable, working class rents.
It should be done, and that's one of the reasons why I made the switch from Democrat to Republican. It was troubling me and bothering me that you would read the stories, watch the stories, hear about the stories of people coming into the country illegally, coming to Massachusetts. They were given, places to live, rent, and a lot of amenities to comfort them while they were here. But then I would walk downtown Fall River, see somebody who was born here, graduated from Durfee High School, living on sleeping on a mattress in downtown Fall River in the freezing cold. And it was mind-boggling for me to say, how can we allow this? This guy's somebody who was born here, raised here, is a U.S. citizen, and he's sleeping out in the cold, but somebody who just came here yesterday, crossing the border illegally, was able to get the amenities that this guy would kill for right now. So we can go there.
To that.
Yeah.
And I've done, I've done, a lot of work on some, work on homeless issues in Fall River, and a lot of the times, and again, it's across the board, people don't want the help.
It's possible.
And I mean, what I'm seeing in Fall River is, if you want help, help's going to be there. A lot of nonprofit organizations have come together with the city, and trying to deal with this. So I don't think it's always somebody on the street dying to get into housing.
It could be
unfortunately.
A mix. It could be a mix, but we also have to prioritize our resources to make sure that there are beds available for those who want them. And I know there's overflow shelters that reach capacity on a nightly basis in Fall River. So to get back to your point in your question, there are tools in the toolbox that are able to be used where, yes, you can cut through the red tape, have initiatives and incentives to build affordable housing for people who need it. I'm very concerned about the mixed rate housing that's being here, where you're seeing rents $2,000, $1,500. For somebody who's only making $1,000 a month on Social Security, how can they afford that? And if you're the person who owns the 3-family, you're going to say, gee, I can get more for this 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom, and you're going to tell your tenant either pay up or get out. And that's happening right now in Fall River. So there are tools, there are programs available, whether through community development, through HUD, through CHODOs, that allow incentives to builders, contractors, to build affordable developments in Massachusetts.
Would you want to see more affordable or low-income housing being built in Fall? I mean, I don't know how much land there is left, but
if done correctly, you got to make sure that anything you do is being planned properly and implemented properly. You just can't say build it for the sake of building it. Do the study, look at the data to make sure that, yes, this is what we need. There is demand for it. There is income that's going to supply it. You can build the best steakhouse in the world, but if you locate it in a vegetarian neighborhood, you might be out of business in a month. So you got to know your neighborhood, you got to know your data, you got to know what you're doing before you do it.
But with all the planning and so on and so forth, you start planning for something now, it doesn't happen 5 years from now. What do these people do during that gap?
That's the sad part, Dave, right? A lot of the things we're talking about didn't happen overnight. It's been a systemic problem.
Like the railroad, what,
Right.
30 some years?
And unfortunately, sometimes we don't think about these things, meaning government should be thinking about them, but us as residents or citizens don't think about them. And we don't realize them until it's too late, right? Until it hits us, until we open up the bill and say, gee, I don't have enough money in my account to pay it this month. We should have been properly planning to say, okay, we have the foresight to know, the forecast to know that our revenue is this, our expenses are this, and we're not going to be able to make ends meet. Go back to some of the articles we did 10 years ago, some of the radio broadcasts we did 10 years ago. I was talking about Fall River's revenue is not going to be able to meet its expenses if we keep going that on the rate that we're going. And yes, the chickens have come home to roost. We don't have the revenue. And whether it's Mayor Coogan or anybody else, they're going to have some tough decisions to make in the next couple of years because the federal money is drying up. The expenses keep going up, but what's not going up is our revenue.
But the argument that people make in the current city council and past city councils is Fall River has done its share. And why does Fall River get asked to build more affordable housing when Somerset, Swansea, Westport, Dartmouth, and on and on and on haven't met their obligation?
Very true. And that's when you're going to have strong leadership to say to the governor, we're not going to do it. And unless other towns start doing their part, we're going to stop doing our part here. What bothers me a lot, Alan, is you have elected officials who don't want to ruffle the feathers of leadership. I got to do what the Senate president tells me to do, or they're going to put me in the basement and take away my chairmanship. I can't go on the wrong side of the Speaker of the House because I'm not going to get my bonus at the end of the year, or they're going to take away my nice office. And that's the truth, okay? So we have to stop doing what might be right for the party or what might make us politically popular up in Boston and start making the right decisions for the people of Fall River so that the people of Fall River benefit and not a Senate president or a Speaker of the House.
Well, amen to that. Anything? What's next for you? For sure. You know, what's your next? And by the way, are you still in court a lot?
A lot of yes. Not like I used to be. You know, any given day you could pop in the courthouse and see me.
Yep.
I really have slowed down my law practice because, like we talked about, you have to prioritize and focus on the things that you can do. My law license is active. My malpractice insurance is paid. I have my office on Rock Street. So I have the blessing to be able to pick and choose the cases that I want to do. So if the case interests me or if I feel I can be effective, I'll take it. But I'm not at the same pace as I was 10 years ago, where I was in court every day in multiple courts on any given day. What's next for me? Only God knows. I just want to be happy and healthy and be able to make a difference in the things that I do.
How would you defend Karen Reed?
Great question. I know Hank Brennan personally. That's the new prosecutor on the Karen Reed case. He's a phenomenal attorney. There's a lot of questions with the Karen Reed case. Do I believe she is guilty by the legal standpoint? No. I don't believe a jury would find her guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. There's too much doubt in this case. One of the things I was thinking about the other day is, where was all the blood? You know, there was snow outside, and you have the police officer, the decedent, outside for several hours, but yet there was no puddles or pools of blood. You're a hunter, Dave. You know that there's
would have been a mess.
Blood splatter.
Yeah.
Whenever you have a wound or an exit wound or some type of a cut. So that was a question. Where was all the blood? They tried to sell the house. They made the renovations of the home. The dog disappeared. So many questions. So do I think she's going to be found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt? No. But it's a fascinating case, and again, we can't lose track of what really happened here. Somebody died, and hopefully there's closure for his mom and dad and his family.
Well, thank you so much, Will.
I've enjoyed this. Yeah, thank you for
so
having
much,
me.
and
Off the record, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
yes, sir.
And for the folks who are watching at home, you have three phenomenal journalists here bringing you this program. Alan Zerig, a longtime newsman for WSAR 1480 AM. Joe Good, who was the investigative beat reporter for the Fall River Herald News. Dave Souza, who's, if you woke up every morning and see the photographs in the paper, he was the one capturing and taking them. So, tune in weekly, and you got a great program here.
Thanks so much for the
Thanks for coming. Yeah.
Have a great day.
That's our new promo.
Thank you.